On my wedding night, I opened the door to the bridal suite and saw my fiancé lying on our bed with his first love. They told me to stop making a scene, to apologize, to know my place. I lowered my head and left. I was kicked out of the company, humiliated in public, even pushed into a pool, nearly dying to the sound of their laughter. Everyone thought I was just a crushed Cinderella, until I personally withdrew funds, acquired shares, and blocked their paths. Only then did they realize that my patience wasn't weakness. It was all for this moment, to leave them with nothing. I opened the door to the bridal suite. Jason and Sophie were on my wedding bed. Sophie saw me and deliberately moved apart in slow motion. She even smiled at me. Jason's first words were, "Grace, don't make a scene." Sophie sat up, the sheets sliding down. Her voice was saccharinely sweet. "Grace, you finally made it? We aren't exactly strangers," Jason says. "Bros before, doesn't matter." Jason didn't deny it. He smiled, that familiar, careless smile I knew so well. I stared at the crimson wedding bed. The silk sheets I had chosen were now wrinkled and stained with marks that should never have been there. My bridal suite, my wedding night, my husband, all ruined. "Call off the wedding," I said. My voice was calm, even to my own surprise. Jason's smile froze. "What did you just say?" I said. "It's over now." He jumped off the bed and grabbed my wrist. "Are you out of your mind? This is our wedding day. There are guests downstairs." Sophie wrapped herself in the sheet, her eyes red. "Grace, don't be mad, it's all my fault." "Yes," I said, looking her in the eyes. "It's your fault. And his." I shook off Jason's hand. I started packing. My suitcase was in the closet, not fully open yet. I threw in my clothes, passport, documents, piece by piece. Jason blocked the doorway. "If you leave, don't ever come back." I never planned to. I pulled the suitcase and passed between him and Sophie. Sophie was still wrapped in our wedding quilt. Music still played downstairs. Guests were still laughing. I walked straight out the front door. The night air was cold, but my heart was colder. Not pain, just complete numbness. Jason thought I'd cry, scream, beg him. He was wrong. This was only the beginning. 3 days later, Mrs. Joe summoned me back to the Joe family mansion. I went. The living room was full. Mrs. Joe, Jason, Sophie, and several relatives of the Joe family. Sophie sat close to Mrs. Joe, her head resting on her shoulder. Mrs. Joe didn't offer me a seat. "Grace," she began, her voice like a blade. "The Joe family is respectable. Jason married you because you were obedient. But look at yourself, country-born, orphaned, no background, no manners. Making a scene on your wedding night has made the Joe family a laughingstock." Sophie sniffled softly. "Auntie, please don't say that. Grace just loved Jason too much." "Love?" Mrs. Joe sneered. "What's that worth? Sophie is the one I've raised. I know her inside out. You, Grace, what do you have to compare?" She turned to Jason. "Say something." Jason fiddled with his lighter, eyes down. "Mom, stop it." "No, I will speak." Mrs. Joe pointed at me. "Today, you must apologize to Sophie for your rudeness and the shame you brought to the Joe family." All eyes were on me. Sophie's eyes gleamed with triumph. I stepped forward. Then, I bowed. "I'm sorry," I said. The room went silent. Sophie froze. Mrs. Joe stiffened. Jason looked up at me, his expression unreadable. They thought I'd fight back. I didn't. "I'm sorry for disappointing you," I said, standing straight, calm. "I'm leaving now, and I won't be in your way anymore." Mrs. Joe recovered and snorted coldly. "Smart of you, Jason. See her out. Remember, once she leaves the Joe family, she's nothing. Think carefully. If she comes back to apologize, maybe there's a place for her." Jason escorted me to the front door. He lowered his voice. "Grace, moms like that. Keep your head down, and it'll blow over. Don't be stubborn." I said nothing. I stepped out of the Joe family mansion and never looked back. My phone buzzed. A message from Jason. "Once you've calmed down, let's talk." I deleted it and turned off my phone. The Joe family thought I'd go back begging. They were wrong. I would never step foot in that house again. A week later, I returned to work. I was a director at a design company. Small, but I led several core projects. In my glass-walled office sat Sophie. She was wearing my backup blazer. In my chair, using my computer. She waved at me with a smile. Jason walked out of the adjacent office. Grace, you're back. Perfect timing. Sophie will temporarily take over your director role. You've been underperforming lately. Take a break. Who approved this? I asked. Me, Jason said matter-of-factly. I'm the majority shareholder. Besides, Sophie's talented. She needs the opportunity. Sophie stood and looped her arm through Jason's. Grace, don't be mad. Jason's only looking out for you. You're not in the right state to work. I looked at Jason. Where did I go wrong that I needed to be replaced? Jason frowned. It's not about right or wrong. It's about stability. You disappeared for a week without a word. Who was handling the projects? Grace, be realistic. Now that you're back, I can give you a senior designer position. Be cooperative. And if I refuse? Then you ruin your career, Jason said, his voice cold. This industry is tiny. One word from me, and good luck finding another company willing to hire you. Decide, stay obediently or be gone forever. Colleagues were watching, some sympathetic, some gleeful. I walked over to my desk, now Sophie's desk, and picked up the small cactus pot. It was mine. Then I turned, went to the common area, and found an empty cardboard box. From the drawers, I placed my personal items inside, a pen, a sketchbook, a few photos. Holding the box, I headed for the elevator. Grace, Jason shouted behind me. You'll regret this. The elevator doors closed. In the mirrored walls, my face was calm. Jason would find out soon enough. What he kicked out wasn't his ex-fiancée. It was the heart of his company. Half a month later, I received an invitation to an exclusive charity gala. I went. I wore a black evening dress I'd bought years ago. Simple, but perfectly tailored. The event was held on the top floor of a 5-star hotel. Crystal chandeliers, champagne towers, familiar faces everywhere. The moment I walked in, I saw Jason and Sophie. Sophie was in an exaggerated, puffed-up gown, clinging to Jason's arm, laughing loudly. A group of socialites surrounded me. The leader was Lily, whose family was in real estate and who had always been Sophie's close friend. Well, look who showed up. Lily blocked my path. Isn't this the Joe family's kicked-out ex-daughter-in-law? What? Couldn't get back into the Joe house. So you came here to crash the party? The other girls laughed. I heard Mrs. Joe yelled at her until she cried in public. An orphan with no parents, trying to climb the social ladder. Bet the dress is rented. You can tell, it looks cheap. I went around them, heading for a glass of water. Suddenly, Lily stuck out her foot. I stumbled. My clutch flew out of my hand. At the same time, I collided with a server carrying a tray of red wine. Splash, an entire tray of red wine poured onto my dress. The deep crimson stain spread rapidly across the black fabric. A complete mess. The server, a young woman, froze in panic and kept apologizing. Lily gasped dramatically. Oh my! How could you be so careless? That dress must be expensive. Ha! Can you even afford to pay for it? Her voice drew attention. Jason and Sophie walked over as well. Sophie covered her mouth. Grace, how did you end up looking so miserable? Jason stared at the stain, frowning. There was no concern in his eyes, only disgust. Can't you be more careful? You're embarrassing. The event manager rushed over, glanced at me, and immediately lashed out at the server. How do you do your job? Do you know how expensive this lady's dress is? Can you afford to compensate? The server was on the verge of tears. Lily fanned the flames. Manager, this should be handled seriously. But I don't think Miss Grace here is even a formally invited guest, right? May I see her invitation? I took out my invitation card. The manager scanned it, his expression darkening. This is a standard invitation. Miss Grace, this situation is affecting the order of the event. Please go freshen up first. All right? Polite words. A clear dismissal. A few men who looked like security approached. Please come with us. The manager gestured. They didn't take me to a lounge. They led me to the hotel's back garden. The garden was dimly lit and nearly empty. The guards released me and left. Lily and the other socialites followed. Now there's no one around, Lily said with a smile. She picked up a half-finished glass of champagne nearby and splashed it in my face. The icy liquid dripped down my hair and cheeks. This drink is to teach you to know your place, she said. Another girl stepped forward and slapped me across the face. Smack. My cheek burned with pain. This slap is for Sophie. Just looking at you makes me sick. They surrounded me, as if I were a piece of trash. Jason and Sophie stood at the garden entrance. Jason's face was blank. Sophie leaned against him, the smile at her lips barely concealed. No one helped me. I wiped the wine from my face. Done yet? Lily froze. If you're done, I said, then it's my turn. My words stunned them. Then Lily laughed. Your turn? What are you going to do? Call the cops? Who do you think the police will believe? She shot a look to the others. Two girls grabbed my arms and dragged me backward. Behind us was the outdoor pool, at least 2 meters deep. I'm afraid of water. Terrified. When I was young, I fell into a river and nearly drowned. I'd feared deep water ever since. Let's wake her up, Lily said. They shoved me toward the edge. I struggled, but I wasn't strong enough. Splash. I fell into the pool. The freezing water swallowed me instantly. The suffocating pressure clamped my throat. I flailed desperately, but my body kept sinking. I could hear laughter from above the water. She's putting on a good act. Leave her. She'll climb out herself. Jason, look how ridiculous she is. I looked toward the poolside. Jason stood there, hands in his pockets, completely still. He didn't even take a step forward. Sophie clung to his arm, whispering something to him. He was watching, calmly, as if it were an irrelevant show. Water flooded my nose and mouth. My vision began to blur. Was I going to die? Die here? Die to their laughter? I wasn't willing. A dark figure flashed past. Someone jumped in. Strong arms wrapped around my waist and lifted me upward. Splash, I was dragged out of the water and onto the ground. I coughed violently, my whole body shaking. A suit jacket, still warm with body heat, was wrapped around me. I looked up and saw a sharply defined face. His eyes were piercing, like a hawk's. Ethan Yen. I didn't know him well, but I knew he was a top-tier guest at the gala, with an extremely powerful background. He knelt beside me on one knee and patted my back. Breathe. Slow breaths. The entire place fell silent. No one was laughing anymore. Jason's face changed. Sophie's eyes widened. Ethan looked up, his gaze sweeping over Lily and the others before stopping on Jason. Mr. Joe, are these your people? Jason opened his mouth. No, they, at my event, Ethan said calmly, every word sharp as ice. Harassing a guest I invited. Very good. Lily's face went pale. Mr. Yen, this is a misunderstanding. She slipped on her own. Ethan ignored her. He looked down at me. Can you speak? I grabbed his sleeve and forced out a few words with everything I had left. My voice was weak, but clear enough for those nearby to hear. It's time to bankrupt them. After that, my vision went black, and I passed out. I woke up to the smell of disinfectant, white ceiling, 4 drip, a hand holding mine, warm, strong. I turned my head and saw Ethan leaning back in the chair, eyes closed, but still holding my hand. He woke immediately. How are you feeling? His voice was a little hoarse. Okay, I said, my throat sore. He pressed the call button for the doctor. After the checkup, the doctor said I was fine, just overshocked, plus mild drowning. So I needed rest. Once the doctor left, it was just the 2 of us in the room. Thank you for saving me, I said. Ethan looked at me, eyes deep. Grace, do you remember me? I froze for a moment. 12 years ago, in the backyard of the Gu family mansion, you fell into the lotus pond. I pulled you out. He paused. At that time, you said you'd marry me one day. Fragments of memory surfaced. A humid summer, an old mansion, a boy taller than me, and a yellowed marriage contract. You're the Yen master of the Yen family? I murmured. Yes. He smiled faintly, then composed himself. I've been looking for you for years. Then I heard you went abroad. Later, I heard you were getting married to the Zhou family. His tone was calm, but I sensed something else behind it. Why did you choose him? Ethan asked. I stared at the ceiling. Why? Because when Jason pursued me, he was passionate and attentive. Because he said my background didn't matter. Because I wanted a home of my own. I was blind, I said. Ethan didn't smile. He squeezed my hand tighter. And now? What's your plan? I looked at him. My phone? He handed it to me. I turned it on. Dozens of missed calls, all from Jason. Texts ranging from angry to pleading. I dialed another number. Secretary Lee? It's me, Grace. Miss, you finally called. The chairman has been worried. Listen carefully. First, withdraw all Gu family capital from any projects with the Joe Group. Second, notify all partners we work with to terminate all business with Joe. Third, I authorize you to use my personal trust fund to acquire all circulating Joe shares, by as much as possible. A crisp response came from the other end. Yes, miss. Executing immediately. I hung up. Ethan raised an eyebrow. The sole heir of the Gu family, he said. Playing Cinderella, fun? Not fun, I said. But now, the game is over. My phone rang again. Jason. I hung up. He called again. I turned it off. What do you want me to do? Ethan asked. Watch the show with me, I said. I've already built the stage. 3 days later, the Joe Group was in chaos. 3 core projects were frozen by investors simultaneously. The only message, we only recognize Miss Grace Gu. If she's not involved, the collaboration ends. Massive breach of contract bills poured in like snowflakes. The bank flooded Jason's office with calls demanding repayment. Jason finally realized the severity. He called me like a madman. I stayed off. He called the Gu Group switchboard, demanding to speak to Grace Gu. The operator transferred him to Secretary Lee. Professional as ever. Lee said, I'm sorry. Miss Gu is not meeting any Joe-related parties at this time. For business requests, please submit through proper channels. I'm her husband, Jason yelled into the phone. Legally, you are not. Secretary Lee replied politely. Miss Gu's lawyer should have delivered the divorce papers. Please check your records. Jason slammed the phone down. He rushed to my old apartment, no one there. He went everywhere possible, couldn't find me. Finally, through Sophie, he contacted the gala organizers and got Ethan's assistant's number. When the call connected, Jason's voice was low and pleading. Mr. Yen, could you please let Grace take this call? Or, tell me where she is. It's urgent. Ethan's assistant spoke evenly. Miss Gu is resting and not seeing anyone. Also, Mr. Yen asked me to remind you, manage your people. Next time you touch Miss Gu, it won't be just a few projects lost. The call ended. Jason stood in his office, staring at the screen, watching bad news pop up one after another. Pale as a ghost, Sophie burst in, crying, Jason, my company is affected too. My dad said several partners suddenly pulled out. Was this Grace's doing? You have to fix this. Jason turned on her, eyes fierce. If it weren't for you, if you hadn't kept provoking her. Now look. Who does she think she is? Gu family? Which Gu family? A secretary rushed in, voice trembling. Mr. Joe. Bad news. The Gu Group announced they've officially acquired 15% of our circulating shares. They're now the second largest shareholder. The board demands an immediate explanation. Jason's legs gave out. He collapsed into his chair. He remembered my calm face on our wedding night. My bow. My apology. Me leaving with a cardboard box. That wasn't surrender. That was watching a clown. A week later, the Gu Group held its anniversary gala. The city's elite attended. I entered the hall, arm in arm with Ethan. I wore a simple white suit dress, hair cut short, sleek and clean. The moment I stepped in, all eyes turned. Jason and Sophie were there. Mrs. Joe too. Their faces looked like they'd seen a ghost. Sophie whispered to Jason, how does she even have the nerve to come? And with Mr. Yen, she's clearly climbed to a higher branch. Mrs. Joe lifted her head and approached me. Grace, she said loudly, ensuring everyone around could hear. This is not a place for you. Dressing up like that doesn't mean you can sneak into high society. I'll tell you, lowborn is in your bones. It can't be changed. Several guests glanced over, whispering. Jason grabbed his mother. Mom. Stop. Why stop? Mrs. Joe shrugged him off. A woman like her, if you hadn't been soft, she'd never have entered the Joe house. Kicked out and now coming to the Goo Gala to fish for rich men, shameless. Ethan's eyes darkened. Ready to speak. I lightly pressed his hand. At that moment, the chairman of the Goo group, my father, Goo Chan-hai, stepped onto the main stage. The spotlight fell on him. He took the microphone, his gaze sweeping across the room before finally landing on me. "Thank you all for coming," he said steadily. "Tonight, in addition to celebrating the Goo group's anniversary, I have one more announcement to make." The hall fell silent. "Allow me to introduce my daughter, the sole heir of the Goo group, Goo Shirhan, Grace Goo." The spotlight snapped onto me. Blinding light. Dead silence. My father continued. "Shirhan has spent years overseas, keeping a low profile while gaining experience. Now that she has returned, she will formally take over the group's operations. I ask for your support going forward." Mrs. Jo stood there with her mouth open, like a fish pulled out of water. The color drained from Sophie's face. She clutched Jason's arm, her nails digging into his flesh. Jason stood frozen. As he stared at me, shock turned into confusion, then into fear. I stepped forward, walking toward the stage beneath the spotlight. When I passed Mrs. Jo, I paused for a moment. In a voice only she could hear, I said, "You're right, Mrs. Jo. Things in one's bones never change. For example, your greed and stupidity." I walked onto the stage and took the microphone from my father. Facing the stunned crowd, I smiled. "Hello, everyone. I'm Goo Shirhan. From today on, I look forward to working with you." The banquet moved into the networking portion. Everyone was secretly watching me, whispering behind their hands. Sophie tried to slip away. She pulled Jason along, head down, heading for the exit. "Miss Sophie," I said into the microphone. My voice echoed through the hall. "Please stay." She froze. I stepped off the stage and walked toward her. The crowd instinctively parted, forming a path. "I have a gift for you," I said, nodding to my assistant. The massive screen in the ballroom lit up. A video began to play. The first clip was an audio recording from a beauty salon, Sophie and Lily. Sophie's voice rang out clearly. "Jason, please. All I have to do is curl my finger and he comes running." That idiot Grace really thought Jason loved her? He told me himself he married her for the projects she had. Now that the projects are secured, she should get lost. The second clip showed screenshots of Sophie's chat logs with another socialite. "Sophie, that old woman Mrs. Jo is so easy to handle. I give her a couple of designer bags, talk trash about Grace, and she can't wait to kick Grace out. So stupid." The third clip came from Sophie's private social media account. "Went to try on Grace's wedding dress today. Ugh. Terrible taste. But it'll be mine soon. Stolen things always feel the sweetest." Clip after clip followed. Recordings, screenshots, private messages. All undeniable proof of how Sophie schemed against me, seduced Jason, manipulated Mrs. Jo, and mocked every single one of them behind their backs. The hall was utterly silent. Sophie's face went from pale to red, then to ashen gray. She spun toward Lily. Lily immediately stepped back and turned her face away. She looked to the other socialites who had once bullied me with her. Every one of them lowered their heads or turned aside. Finally, she looked at Jason. Jason stared at the screen, his face dark as iron. Slowly, he turned to Sophie, his gaze filled with pure disgust. "Jason, listen to me," Sophie sobbed, grabbing his arm. "Those are fake. Grace fabricated everything." "Fabricated?" I let out a soft laugh. "Do you want me to present the original files and forensic authentication reports as well?" Sophie's legs gave out. She collapsed to her knees. Mrs. Jo clutched her chest, swaying, barely held up by a servant. She pointed at Sophie, shaking. You poisonous woman. You were using me this whole time?" I didn't look at them again. I turned to the crowd. "Let this be witnessed by everyone here. I will not pursue past matters further, but from this day on, all cooperation, both corporate and personal, between the Goo Group and the Jo family, as well as any businesses connected to Miss Sophie and her family, is permanently terminated." One sentence. Life and death decided. Social annihilation, dragging entire families down with it. Sophie collapsed on the floor, wailing, her makeup smeared beyond recognition. There was nothing left of the elegant socialite she once was. No one went to help her. Jason shook her off like something filthy and walked away without looking back. Mrs. Joe was escorted out by servants, her back bent and trembling. I turned and walked toward Ethan and my father, who were waiting nearby. Behind me was Sophie's complete breakdown and her silent erasure from high society. I didn't need to lift a finger myself. There would be plenty of others willing to crush her for me. As the Goo Group began taking over parts of the Joe family's business, it threatened the interests of several old local power families. 3 days later, they came together and showed up at my door. The leader's surname was Wang, in his 50s, overweight, slick-looking, vice president of the local chamber of commerce. He brought 5 or 6 men and barged straight into my office. "Miss Gu," Chairman Wang said as he dropped onto the sofa, legs crossed. "Youthful ambition is admirable, but you need to understand the rules. The Joe family is finished." "Sure, but this slice of Jiang City isn't something an outsider girl can just take because she feels like it," the others chimed in. "Exactly. No matter how strong the Goo Group is, an outside dragon can't overpower local snakes. Young lady, business is about relationships. You've cut off everyone's income. Don't you think that's inappropriate? We heard you dealt with the Joe family pretty ruthlessly, but we're not soft targets like them." I set my pen down and looked at them. "Done?" Chairman Wang narrowed his eyes. "Miss Gu, we came to talk because we're giving you face. Here's the deal, we divide the Joe family's vacated market among ourselves. Goo Group takes the largest share. We get the scraps. In Jiang City, we'll support you. How does that sound?" I smiled faintly. I pressed the intercom. "Secretary Lee, please serve Chairman Wang and his guests some tea. Use our best leaves." Then I looked back at him. "Chairman Wang, I'll return the courtesy. I'll give you 30 minutes. He blinked. 30 minutes for what? Within 30 minutes. I leaned back in my chair, relaxed. You and the companies behind you will each receive at least 3 notices. First, banks calling in loans. Second, key clients terminating contracts. Third, your stock prices dropping by half. The office fell into dead silence. Then laughter exploded. "Ha ha ha, little girl. Who are you trying to scare? 30 minutes? I'll wait 300. Let's see what you've got." Chairman Wang laughed too, shaking his head. "Miss Gu, I advise you." His phone rang. He frowned and answered. "What? Say that again?" "No way." His face drained of color. Then another phone rang, and another. The laughter in the office vanished. Only the panicked ringing and muffled exclamations remained. "Bank manager Lu says our loans are in trouble? They're calling them in early?" "Chairman Wang, just got notice, Hongyuan Group is terminating our contract. Limit down." Our stock hit the limit down. Sweat broke out on Chairman Wang's forehead. He stared at me, frozen. I glanced at my watch. 20 minutes left. He jumped up, his previous arrogance gone. "Miss Gu, have mercy. We were just joking." "A joke?" I looked up. "I don't like jokes like this. We were wrong. We'll withdraw immediately. The Joe family's market, take it all. It's yours." Another man shouted, voice trembling. 15 minutes left, I said. Chairman Wang's legs gave out. He nearly fell to his knees. "Miss Gu, please, have mercy. I have elders and children at home." 10 minutes. Thunk. Chairman Wang actually dropped to his knees. The others followed suit. "Miss Gu, we looked down on you. You're magnanimous. Please spare us. We'll never dare again. From now on, Jiang City is yours. Whatever you say goes." I watched their tear-streaked faces. Time's up. No sooner had I spoken than Chairman Wang's phone rang again. His hand shook so badly he couldn't pick it up. I gestured to my assistant, who handed it to him. He answered, listened for a few seconds, and his face went gray as ashes. My father has been taken. My company is being investigated for illegal fundraising." He collapsed to the floor, murmuring to himself. I stood, smoothing the hem of my suit. "Escort them out." Security entered and escorted the stunned men out. The office returned to quiet. Secretary Lee walked in. "Miss, everything has been handled. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out over Jiang City. A strong dragon can't crush the local snake? That's only because the dragon wasn't strong enough. A month later, the Goo Group completed its consolidation and held a thank-you banquet. Jason came, alone. He had lost a lot of weight. stubble on his face. His suit wrinkled. He watched me from afar, trying to approach, but was blocked by security. I saw him and nodded at the guards. He walked up to me, eyes conflicted, regret, pleading. Grace, no. Shirhan, he said, his voice hoarse. Can we talk? Business or personal? I asked. Personal. He was desperate. I know I was wrong. I was deceived by Sophie, influenced by my mom, but I've always had you in my heart. Can we start over? I don't want anything now, I just want you. People were glancing over. I looked at him calmly. Jason, you didn't love me. You loved the Grace who could get you projects and feed your ego. The wife you could control. Who wouldn't resist? You can't handle this Gushirhan. That's why you don't love her. You're just resentful. His face went pale. No! I really love you. I regret it. Just give me one chance. Chance? I interrupted. I gave you chances. On our wedding night, I gave you a chance to explain. You told me not to make a scene. When your mom humiliated me, I bowed and apologized, giving you an out. You fired me. I didn't fight back. Every time, you had a choice. But you chose Sophie. Your mom. Your pride. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Jason, you don't understand love at all. You only love yourself. Your regret exists because you lost something that once belonged to you, something you can no longer reach. That's not love. That's a disorder. Emotional dependency disguised as narcissism. He staggered backward, drained of all strength. At that moment, Ethan approached, casually wrapping an arm around my waist. What are you two talking about? He asked, his gaze casually sweeping over Jason. Jason looked at Ethan's hand, at our closeness, then back at me. He finally understood. He had lost everything, even the right to compete. Congratulations, he said hoarsely, then turned and staggered away. Ethan lowered his head toward me. Soft-hearted? No, I said. Just pathetic. Had I loved him? Maybe a little. Once. But now there was only emptiness. I didn't even bother to hate him. The Joe group, teetering on the edge of collapse, had no choice but to approach me again, this time for business. In the conference room, Jason slid a cooperation proposal across the table. President Gu, this is the best we can offer. Joe is in trouble, but the foundation is intact. A partnership benefits us both. I reviewed the documents. Generous terms, almost a sacrifice to stay alive. Accepted. I closed the file. Jason's eyes lit up. But the terms need changing. I signaled our legal team to pass over our version. Sign this. Jason took it, scanned a few lines, and his face fell. This is too harsh. Only 20% of profits to us? Decision-making power entirely with Gu? This essentially makes Joe a subsidiary. Exactly. I nodded. Accept. And Joe survives. Refuse. And within 3 months, the name Joe will vanish from Jiang City. He gripped the papers, knuckles white. Grace, must you be this ruthless? President Joe. I corrected. Business only. He looked at me. One last flicker of hope. If there's still a spark of something between us, there isn't. I interrupted. The spark burned out the day you chose Sophie. Now sitting here are the Gu Group president and the Joe representative. Business only. No feelings. His shoulders slumped. After a long silence, he said, I'll sign. He signed. He looked up, about to say something more. Ethan entered the room, casually walked over, and set a warm milk tea on my desk. Done talking? Mom called. What do you want for dinner? Anything. I smiled. Jason watched our natural intimacy. His last bit of hope died. He picked up the documents and left the room, his back hunched, looking 10 years older. Ethan looked at me. No regrets? None. I said. Just sad. I lifted the milk tea and took a sip. When you throw out the trash, do you need to linger? 3 months later, the Gu Group was fully stabilized. Ethan proposed to me at the Gu family's old estate, beside the lotus pond where I had fallen all those years ago. No grand ceremony, just the two of us. He dropped to one knee, holding out the ring. 12 years ago, you promised to marry me. Does that still count? I looked at him, the man who had waited for me for 12 years, who appeared when I was at my lowest. quietly paving every path for me. It counts, I said. The next day, we went to the Civil Affairs Bureau and registered our marriage. When we came out, the sun was shining. Ethan held my hand. I've actually been setting everything up all along, buying Joe's scattered shares, cutting off their resources. Even the banquet incident, it was all arranged by me. I wanted you to see him clearly, and to have nowhere left to go, except back to me. I stopped walking. I know, I said. He froze. You knew? From the first time you saved me. I thought it was too coincidental. Then you always appeared at just the right moment. Secretary Lee's attitude toward you, she didn't treat you like a stranger. I said, Ethan, I'm not dumb. I just let you in. His eyes suddenly went red. He pulled me into a tight embrace. Sorry, I used methods. It's fine. I hugged him back. Because I did too. We're even. We smiled at each other. That afternoon, news of our marriage hit the headlines. Jason supposedly saw the news and trashed his entire office. But who cares? Half a year later, Sophie's family went bankrupt. She herself came under investigation for business fraud and eventually disappeared. Rumor had it she went to a small town in the south and married an ordinary worker. The Joe Group was fully acquired by the Goo Group and rebranded. Mrs. Joe suffered a stroke and became bedridden. Jason left Jiang City, moved to a second-tier city, and ran a small business, never returning to high society. The socialites who had bullied me, their family businesses were affected by Goo Group's moves. They came to apologize and sent extravagant gifts. I accepted the gifts, but business? Out of the question. Chairman Wang and the other local power players? Completely tamed. They bowed and called me Chairwoman Goo. I officially took over the Goo Group as chairman. Ethan became vice chairman, overseeing overseas operations. The media dubbed me the Queen of Jiang City. My story was written in countless versions. The most popular? The true heiress humbles the scumbag husband, revenge and rebirth of a Cinderella. They were partly right and partly wrong. I had been patient. But patience isn't weakness. It's power stored. At the year-end celebration, Goo Group rented out the entire International Conference Center. I stood on the top-floor terrace, looking out at the lights of Jiang City. Ethan came over and draped his coat over my shoulders. What are you looking at? The Empire, I said. He smiled and wrapped an arm around me. Below, the ballroom was filled with well-dressed guests, all there to pay respects. Once, I had been a joke to them, a Cinderella clinging to a rich family, a discarded wife. Now, I was someone they had to look up to. There was a minor commotion at the terrace entrance. Jason, somehow, he had gotten in, wearing an ill-fitting old suit, holding a wine glass, eyes unfocused, staring at me. The guards moved to stop him. I raised my hand. He approached and stopped a few steps away. Grace, no. Chairwoman Goo. He forced a crooked smile. Congratulations. You won beautifully. I said nothing. I keep thinking, if back then I had chosen you, what would have happened? His voice broke. No ifs. I said calmly. You made your choice once. You saw the outcome. He hung his head, shoulders trembling. He was crying. I really did love you. It doesn't matter anymore. I turned to Ethan. Let's go. Ethan took my hand. We walked side by side. At the door, I stopped. Without looking back, I said one sentence. Jason, all of you fought to keep me underfoot, thinking that was my end. But you were wrong. Your ceiling is only my starting point. With that, Ethan and I stepped into the brilliant light. Behind us, Jason's total collapse, and the crumbling of that old world. And me? I never looked back.